So tonight we're going to be talking about, the parsha is called Balak. It has beautiful stories in it. So many things happening in the parsha. But let's start off with the following. So I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa. In my father's synagogue, it was called Orange Grove Hebrew Congregation, which is still around. There was a guy who was blind, who used to come every single Shabbos, every single Friday night. He used to come with his dog. His dog was called Hamish. And he used to come to shul completely blind. He used to come to our house very, very often. And there's nobody who demanded Mashiach more than this guy. This guy, we'll call him Yankel, wanted Mashiach with all his heart and soul. And he couldn't see, and he sat by our Shabbos table with his gorgeous dog. I used to love his dog. And, unfortunately, during his lifetime, he was able to see, right? He was able to see. And then due to an incident, which I won't mention, he became blind. And it was a mistake he made, and he became blind. And I would say that during his life, when he was physically able to see, he was blind. But during the time that he was blind, that's when he was able to see the most. And that's what I really want to explain in the shiur tonight. If you actually understood what I just said, I'm going to expound on that. Because, do me a favor, close your eyes for a second, right? Imagine you are blind. Imagine you cannot see a thing. Right? So you're groping in the darkness, you can't see anything. Do you have compassion on yourself? Do you feel bad for yourself? Now the truth is, at this moment when you're all closing your eyes, this is the truth of our lives. Because we are all blind. Open your eyes now. And you see. What do you see? You think you see. But you are completely blind. You see each other, you see the walls, you see mountains, you see the atmosphere. But we are completely blind. And the tragedy is that we think we see. In the Lubavitcher Rebbe's words, we are living in what's called choshech kaful umchupal, a double darkness. Not only is it dark, but the darkness is so severe, it's so bad that we think we are not living in darkness. It's the tragedy of our times. Choshech kaful umchupal. And I'm going to teach you tonight deep Hasidic stuff. I'm going to bring it down so you can understand it in the greatest way. But know that even though this sounds very simple, this is the deepest esoteric concepts of mysticism and Kabbalah that we're going to study here tonight. Before we say the Shema, every single day, there's a paragraph there which reads the following. So before we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, by the way, the most majestic moments in Judaism, all closing our eyes. Shema Yisrael, we all close our eyes. When else do we close our eyes? Candle lighting, very good. The most sublime time, you go like this, and you close your eyes. Yes?
Priestly blessings.
Priestly blessings, very good. You close your eyes. So before we say the Shema every single day, we say the following statements. Avinu Avarachaman, our Father in heaven. Hamerachem, the merciful one. Rachem na aleinu, please have mercy upon us. What are we saying? Every single day of our lives, 365 days a year, what we say and what we utter is, our merciful Father in heaven, have mercy, have compassion upon us. So what are we saying? What are we saying? Right? Look at the English. What are we saying? We say, V'ten belibeinu la'avad u'le'yirai shmecha. Put in our hearts to love and fear you. V'ha'er eneinu b'toratecha. Light up our eyes in your Torah. V'dabek libeinu. And put our hearts b'mitzvotecha. What we are saying is very simple. We're saying to God, we're living in a world which is so dark. We're living in times that are so chaotic. Please have compassion upon us. Allow us to see. Allow us to see the truth. Ha'er eneinu, let our eyes shine in your Torah. Let our hearts cleave to your mitzvot. Once upon a time, there was a king who had a daughter, and he tried to get her married. And every single guy who came to the kingdom, the daughter said, this guy I don't like because of this, that, and the other. And this guy I don't like because of this, that, and the other. This guy I don't like his nose, this guy I don't like his head. Eventually the king became exasperated, and he said to her, I vow to you, I promise you, the next person to walk into this palace is going to be your husband. So he thought the next person would be the next prince of, of London. But the next person to walk in happened to be the local peasant. And the king, true to his vow and his pledge, forced his daughter to marry this guy. Right? Imagine fathers could force their daughters today to marry who they wanted, right? What a world we'd live in. So this guy forced his daughter to live with this peasant. And the peasant couldn't believe his luck. He was a kind-hearted individual. He went to his beautiful wife and he gave her the luxuries that he could offer her. So he put her on a bed of straw. Beautiful, gorgeous bed of straw. Who wants to get the door? That's upstairs. Beautiful bed of straw. And his wife was crying because she was used to laying on a pillow of silk on a bed of a fat mattress, and here she's lying on the floor. And she starts crying. So the husband thinks that his wife's not happy. Okay, so he says to her, this beautiful shack is not good enough. She lives in a shack with there's holes dripping over. There's it smells of the horses and the whatever else is going on in the field. It's not a happy party there, right? So he decides, I'm going to buy her a gift. I'm going to get her something that's really going to make her happy. So he goes out. And he comes back home, and he's got this beautiful box, and he tells his wife, my dear beautiful wife, I realize you are unhappy. Close your eyes. She closes her eyes, she puts out her hand, and he says, I got this incredible gift for you. And she's thinking, finally, he's going to buy me a 5-carat, 30-carat, I don't know what it is, necklace, or a diamond, or bracelet, or earring, something nice, right? And she opens up her eyes, and she sees in her hand, he put a delicious tomato, but a luscious, precious tomato from the field that he himself planted. And she starts to cry because this guy, her husband, doesn't even speak the same language as her. He doesn't understand what it means to be living with servants and to be living with a chef who makes you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and to have the finest luxuries that life can offer, a yacht. This is what he gives me, a tomato? She bursts out crying and she can't even explain to him. Explain our sages. That compassion that you have for the princess is actually every single one of us. Come have a seat, we have plenty of seats. That princess is every single one of us. Because our soul was living in heaven, bathing in divine delicacies. And a person can live 70, 80, 90, 100 years in this world and have all the Hamptons homes and French homes and all the Lamborghinis and cars and Ferraris and Vegas and casinos and yachts, whatever luxuries can offer. Our sages explain we don't even understand the meaning of the word pleasure. We don't understand what pleasure means. We think pleasure is X, Y, Z, fill out the blank. True pleasure comes from the soul basking in divine delicacies. The soul comes down to this earth. It is forced to marry the peasant. The body is the peasant. And the body is interested in one thing only: instant gratification. Whatever gives me gratification now is what the body wants. And the soul feels so much pain because you're giving me a shack to live in which drips and a hole and a bed full of straw, when I'm used to true pleasures. This is what you're giving me? You're giving me $1 million? You're giving me another car? So the peasant, the husband, the body feels that his wife is not happy, so he goes to buy her a tomato. What's a tomato? He goes to buy her another $1 million, another diamond necklace, another vacation, another earring, another $1 million, and another $1 million, another $1 million, and 10 million, and 100 million, and $1 billion, and $5 billion. And there's a whole craving inside of me, because the more billions and money you give me, the more I cry, because those billions of dollars are like giving me a tomato, and they don't satiate me. What satiates me is Torah and mitzvot, helping another person, giving charity, putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbat candles, coming to a Torah class like this right now. That's what our soul is craving, is yearning, is chalishing for. So that's what it means when we say in the Shema, our dear Father in heaven, please have compassion upon us, because our body is ruling over us and our soul we're blind. The body's blind. It's oblivious to the fact that our soul is craving, is yearning for something so much deeper. Please have compassion upon us. V'ha'er einenu, light up our eyes in your Torah, which is what the neshama, the soul, wants. V'dabek libeinu, put our hearts in your mitzvot. Let's take this a step deeper now. There are two dimensions to the world. Okay, what I'm saying now is life-changing, can change your life. It can change every aspect of your life. There are two ways of looking at the world. One is called, in the words of Kabbalah, Dat Elyon, knowledge from above, and one is called Dat Tachton, knowledge from below. That means like this. When we look at the universe, a human being looks at the universe, what we see is cars and planes and mountains and trees and people and human beings. That's what we see. What are we looking at right now? That's what we see. But that's a blind dimension. There's another whole way of looking at the world. It's called Dat Elyon, knowledge from above. It's called God's way of looking at the world. These two things change every aspect of our lives, and I'll give you practical examples how. So when I moved to the Upper East Side, there was a Jew. We'll call him Chaim. Chaim used to own a store on 2nd Avenue. And every Shabbat morning, this is before we had a synagogue of our own, every single Shabbat morning, I used to walk with my talit on, right? With my talit, I looked very, very Jewish, with my hat, with my big jacket, and I walked to a local synagogue. And on the way, I walked past Chaim's store. So when I used to walk in, I used to go inside and say, Shabbat Shalom, Chaim. Now, Chaim was a person who grew up religious, grew up in Israel, and he abandoned his faith. He ran away from everything. His parents didn't even know where he was for many, many, many years. And he came here to Manhattan, hadn't spoken to his parents in years, and I wished him Shabbat Shalom. And he said, Shabbat Shalom back. Now in Israel, when you grew up in those times, there's a religious brigade. If you don't behave, they take a stick and they whack you. And they hit you. That's what they do. In the olden days, not today. Today you get arrested for that. So he used to get hit. So when I used to walk into his store, he thought I have a stick behind me. He used to hide. So he became embarrassed. On the Shabbat mornings, he went downstairs. He knew I'm coming between 9 and 10 a.m. He used to hide. So he used to tell his workers, bring Chaim, I want to wish him Shabbat Shalom. And eventually he saw that I'm not going to hurt him, I'm not going to shout at him, and I'm not going to judge him either. And slowly but surely we created this beautiful relationship where he trusted me, I trusted him. And he used to tell me before Yom Kippur, he used to come every year Yom Kippur to synagogue at if Yom Kippur in Ne'ilah ends 7:03, he used to come 6:47. For the last 10 minutes, I used to tell him, Chaim, why do you come so late? Why don't you come the whole Yom Kippur? He says, Rabbi, I do so many sins during the year. I don't want God remembering me on Yom Kippur. I come for the last 10 minutes, God doesn't remember me, and we clean up at whatever we need to do, 10 minutes, he forgives me, I forgive him, and we're done. So I said, Chaim, God will forgive your sins. He'll forgive you for everything you do. Don't worry. Don't worry about a thing. And Chaim says, are you sure God will forgive me? I said, absolutely. He says, if you knew the sins that I have committed during the year, you would know God would never forgive me. I said, Chaim, try me. Tell me your sins. So he tells me sin number 1, then sin number 2, and I tell him, Chaim, stop right there. You want my advice? Don't come to shul. I said, I'm kidding. Of course, God will forgive you. These sins are good. Don't worry. God will forgive. So this was the kind of person Chaim was, a real raw relationship with God. But Chaim told me the following. He said, I can't close my store on Shabbat. Because on Shabbat, it was a restaurant his store. On Shabbat, when do customers come the most? When they don't go to work. On Monday, Friday, so Saturday, Sunday, that's when they come to the restaurant. So if you're looking at this, at his words from Da'at Tachton, means knowledge from below, from my perspective, from my eyes, yes, he's 100% right. I need to work, I need to make a living, I need to earn money. If I close my store on Shabbat, my restaurant on Shabbat, that is when most of my clients come, I will lose money. So he's 100% right. But then there's another dimension to looking at things. It's called Da'at Elyon, knowledge from above, from God. God says, who is the person who gives you parnasah, who gives you a livelihood? It's me, says God, and I am your partner. And I told you, if you want to make a living, you close on Shabbat. It doesn't make sense. That's because you are blind. You don't see. You don't see the truth. But the truth is, if you close your store on Shabbat, you will make more money. It doesn't make sense. That's because we are blind. I'll give you another example. A guy makes $50,000 a year. So a person says, I earn the money, I will decide what I want with it. I can't decide on the taxes, right? 20, 30%, whatever goes to taxes, but whatever's left over is mine. Comes along God and says, no, it's not yours, because knowledge from above says, no, it's not yours. You need to give tzedakah. You need to give at least 10%, if not 20% to charity. And today you should probably give a lot more than that, but at least 10 to 20% of charity. The guy says, what do you mean? I should give $5,000, $10,000 away? Says God, yes, it's not your money. I am the one who gave you the money to start off with. So there's two ways of looking at every single aspect of our lives 24/7. Take any mitzvah you want and you have these two ways of looking at it. And every person at his or her level, take the mitzvah of kosher. Why should I keep kosher? Costs more money, it's more inconvenient. That's if you're looking at it from your perspective. But if you're looking at it from God's perspective, of course you need to keep kosher. What kind of question is that? But it's with everything. Let's go a little deeper into a Jew who's even religious. Right? Let's say I'm a doctor or accountant or a lawyer and I work 9 to 5. The Torah says, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? What's the first thing you need to do? Say Mode'ani, say the morning blessings, pray. If you're a male, you go to shul, you spend 45 minutes in shul and you then learn Torah. And the guy will think to himself, well, by the time I'm done, it's 10, 11 a.m. How am I going to make a living? So you're right, if you're looking at it from your perspective. But if you're looking at life from God's perspective, God is the one who decides how much money you're going to make. On Rosh Hashanah, it's the creed. Every day it's the creed. You're going to make X amount of money. And no extra working will give you any extra dollars. But you have to trust in Hashem. You have to place yourself, take yourself, and throw yourself into God's hands. That is the only way this works.
What about manifestation? Like, I know I always keep bringing it up, but I think we can also kind of make things happen, yeah?
Every single person has free choice. Every person has free choice to decide what he or she wants. God gives us, and we have the ability to mess up, and we have the ability to choose correctly. That is your choice to do what you want. And by the way, nobody can resolve your trouble and your pain besides for you. So if you're suffering because you are lonely or depressed or frustrated or because you don't have a job or because you do have a job, whatever you have suffered, the only person who can truly help yourself is yourself. Nobody else. Let's take this a step deeper. Everybody knows the story of Jacob, right? So Jacob, the Medrash relates, it's the story within a story. After he stole the blessings from his brother Esav, he had to run away. On his way, when he ran away, Esav sent his son Eliphaz to kill him. Because Esav said, I can't kill him because I respect my father, but my son can kill him. So let me send my son to kill my brother. Eliphaz chases after Yaakov. He reaches Yaakov, and Yaakov realizes his intentions right away. And Yaakov says, listen to me, my friend. You are my nephew and I love you. If you try to kill me, I'm going to kill you. I'm stronger than you. Yaakov is a strong, strong man. I'm going to kill you first. So Eliphaz says, but my father commanded me, what should I do with the mitzvah of kibud av? My father commanded me to kill you. So Yaakov said, I have a solution for you. It says that a person who's very, very poor, grab a plate, and then come it down. So a person who's very, very poor is considered like a dead man. Like I'm talking about very poor, like you don't have a thing, right? You don't have a bank account, nothing. So Eliphaz did exactly that. He took Yaakov's donkeys and his horses and his gold and his silver and his clothing. He took everything away from him. So you have a guy now, Yaakov, who didn't have a thing in his life. He didn't have a cent to his name, no bank accounts. His brother hated him. He couldn't return home. He was homeless. Right? He has nothing. What does he do now in this position? Right? We all find ourselves in a position, let's say there's a few singles here I see. So let's say you're in a position where you don't have, you're trying to find your wife or your husband. Right? Let's say you're in that position where you feel lonely and you feel so frustrated because Manhattan has 40,000 singles and you would think this is the best place to find my spouse. And then when you start you're dating, you realize that either nobody's serious or there's just too much options here. Right? You date a guy and the guy's like, oh, what about the girl I dated last week? What about the girl I dated 2 weeks ago? What about the girl I'm going to date in a month's time? What about the guy I previously dated, maybe I should go back to him. So there's so much option, it dazzles your mind, plays with your head. So eventually you become lonely and you become depressed, you become sad. Because on a day after work, you are lonely and you are miserable. So what do you do in such a scenario? What do you do? Yaakov was in such a scenario. He was broken. He was broken because he had nothing. He had nothing and he had nobody. Homeless, truly homeless. Even in America, they take care of the homeless, right? They take care of the shelters. He had nothing. No shelters, no social security, no medical aid, nothing. What do you do in such a situation? Yaakov composed one of the greatest psalms in Tehillim, which David HaMelech later on revealed. And that psalm said the following: Shir Lama'alot, a song to heaven. Esa enai el heharim, I lift up my eyes to heaven. Me'ayin yavo Ezri, where will my salvation come from? Ezri me'im Hashem, my salvation comes from God. The deeper meaning of that verse, and listen carefully because this is a game changer verse. When you are suffering through crisis, any crisis, listen to these words carefully. Yaakov says, Esai enai larim, I lift up my eyes because I'm in so much pain. Health crisis, employer job, whatever crisis. Me'ayin yavo Ezri, the simple explanation of those words is, where will my salvation come from? Me'ayin yavo Ezri, the deeper explanation is, Me'ayin, when I realize that Me'ayin, nothing, yavo Ezri, nothing can help me. When I realize that I know I tried to find the best doctor in the universe, but it turns out this doctor doesn't know what he's doing, and he cannot help me, because the disease that I have is worse and cannot be treated. I've dated every single person. I've tried every single dating coach. I've tried every single dating app. And I've dated everybody and I'm just so frustrated. And I realize, me'ayin, nothing can help me. When you in that scenario, says Jacob, now you can be helped. Now what are the next words? Ezri me'im Hashem. When you realize that you don't place your trust in the stock market or in the doctors or in the dating coach, nobody. When you place your trust only in Hashem, Ezri me'im Hashem. Now God will help me. And what was the story with Jacob? Just then, he was praying, and on the riverbanks there was a horse rider came in, took off all his clothes, went into the river, and this guy drowned and died. So Jacob realized, I now have clothing. He put the clothing of the horse driver on. He had a horse, and he went to study in the yeshiva of Shem and Eber. He studied for 14 years, and then he went to Lavan, and he became a billionaire. But from rags to riches, from nothing. Because at that moment, he had an aha moment. He realized that nobody can help me. When you have that aha moment that nobody can help you, when you realize the only person who truly cares about me is God, and you have a relationship with God and you trust in God, that is when salvation comes from. But you need to come to that realization that the doctor won't help me, and the accountant won't help me, and my boss won't help me, and my father won't help me, and my mother won't. Nobody can help you but God. That is your moment. That is when you have this Da'at Elyon. You realize that there's another way of looking at the world. That is when you can be saved, and that is when you can be helped. Clear? Let's connect this now in a deeper way to what's going on in the parasha, because this is where we're starting. By the way, this thing is connected to the parasha because the Haftarah reads all about the time before Mashiach comes where we need to have irrevocable trust in God. That's what the parasha talks about, the Haftarah and the parasha. We have to have complete irrevocable trust in God. What happened in the parasha? There was the Jewish people had an enemy, Balak. Balak hired Bilam to curse the Jews, and we're going to not get into details, but Bilam tried to curse the Jews. He wasn't able to. He blessed them. And then Bilam says, I have great advice for you. God hates immorality. Go and send your daughters to seduce the Jews. When you send your daughters to seduce the Jews, they will be seduced, God will be mad at them, and he will destroy them. And his plan nearly worked. Because what happened is as follows. What were the Jewish people doing in the desert? What was their occupation? They what? They were shepherds, they were studying Torah. Day and night. But you need to take a break, right? You need to take a break for lunch, for breakfast, for dinner, So during those breaks, the Midianites set up tents where they were selling like wares, selling little tzatzkalach. And there was old ladies outside, and the Jewish men came, looked harmless enough, and they started, haggling over the price, and then the old lady said, you know what, we have better stuff inside, come inside. And when they went inside, there was a young girl there, and she started doing whatever she needed to do, and before you know it, the Jews were sinning. But the Jews were sinning not just in immorality, but there was also an idol in those days called the Peor. Anybody heard of the Peor? Talmud in Tractate Sanhedrin says, how did they serve the Peor? There was a woman one time who got ill, and she made a vow. She said, somebody's out there listening, if I get better, I will serve every single idol on planet Earth. She got better and she started serving all the idols, the sun, the moon, the star, whatever, many, many idols, until she got to the Peor. And when they told her how to serve the Peor, she said, I would rather die than serve the Peor in this way. Why is that? How did they serve the Peor? The Talmud tells another story, the same place. There was a Jewish wagon driver, Uber driver, who drove this old lady, and he drove her around, and the old lady said, let's stop right over here. It was outside the temple of the Peor. She went inside, did whatever she needed to do, came outside, and the Jewish wagon driver said to her, can I go inside also? She says to him, Valo Yehudi ata, aren't you Jewish? And he says, what do you care? So she says, okay. He goes inside, he asks the priest, how do you serve the Peor? They gave him stuff to drink, like beer, stuff which makes your stomach have diarrhea, basically. And then what happens is you serve that. I'm not making this up, by the way. It's a Talmud. Pull down your pants, and you go to the bathroom in front of the Peor. And this guy, the Talmud says, I'm quoting, he wiped himself with the nose of the Peor idol. And the priests over there were astounded. They said, nobody has served the Peor idol with such hidur. Hidur means like such beauty. Wow, you served the idol in this precious way. Remember that older lady? She said, I'd rather die and than serve the idol in this fashion. So what's going on over here? What is going on over here? By the way, the Talmud says the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination for idols, was so powerful that eventually the Jewish rabbis had to remove it, had to pray to God, please kill this Yetzer Hara, because we couldn't resist it. It was too powerful. Everything in Torah comes from a spiritual source. What is the spiritual significance and source behind the Peor? We do it every single day. We serve the Peor. And not when we go to the bathroom. You see, the Peor means when a person eats, so there's something called the nutrients that the body absorbs and gives the body nourishment, and then the body excretes whatever it doesn't need. So there's something called primary and something we'll call it secondary. When you take the secondary and make it into a god, that is called serving the Peor. when you take the nonsensical stuff that should be excreted and should go down the drain and you make a God out of it, that is called serving the Peor. When you take yourselves, your own life today, and you look at the priorities, you look at what's important in life, and you look at what's not important. So what's important is to help other people. What's important is to light Shabbat candles, to study the Torah, to be kind, to be a light unto nations, to put on tefillin, to spread light in the universe. That's what's important. Do you know what's not important? Which kind of gorgeous shoes you're wearing, or the latest vacation. When you go on vacation, that's a beautiful thing. But when you live for your vacations, that is serving the Peor. When you live for the dollar bill that you are going to make, that is called serving the Peor. We all need dollar bills. We all need to make money. Money is a means to an end. When you take the money and you make the money into an end unto itself, you make your life evolve around the dollar bill, that is called serving the Peor. And why do we do it? Because of what I've explained the whole shir. Because we are blind. We live in such a darkness that we think we can see, but we are completely blind. And that is how, and that is why we serve the Peor.
And putting someone on a pedestal too would be serving, like you would make them into an idol in that case, right? Which would be not good.
Everything in life, it's like a knife. Is a knife a good thing or a bad thing? Depends. A knife is the most incredible thing when it's used by a doctor to heal people. But a knife is the worst thing when you take a knife and you kill. To go on the peloton or the treadmill could be the same thing. If you're doing it because you want to be a healthy person, you want to lower your cholesterol, you want to be healthy because you want to live, to be alive and to serve God, that's an incredible thing. But if you're doing it because you want to beat people up or because you want to, this would not, but bad intent, then it's a bad thing.
So what about the case of putting someone on a pedestal?
Give me a specific example.
Like if you like someone and then you think they're like better than you somehow and you like kind of worship them and think about them in that way.
It's not a good thing.
Like a celebrity?
It's not a good thing. Because if you
That's
do
like
that,
idol, where you're making
yes,
them an idol,
yes.
right?
Every single person has a quality that you don't have.
Yeah.
But in your pocket you should have two notes. One is the world was created for me, and one is I am nothing. You need to have both mindsets. I am nothing, God is everything. But at the same time, I have a job in the world. I have something in the world that only I can accomplish. Nobody else can accomplish this, and nobody else can take it away from me. Now, I want to now get into the most juiciest part of the shir. The juiciest part. So whoever was sleeping, now's a good time to give everybody some whiskey. Yeah, give everybody some whiskey so they wake up. But we're going to continue. Do it silently, So this is really deep stuff. So in the Torah portion we read, really, the Torah portion has really juicy stuff. There was, as a result of this plague that I was, the story that I was telling you, right? The Midianite woman went. So there was a woman by the name of Cosby. And she was given a task, a mission by her father, the king, one of the 5 kings of Midian, go and seduce the leader of the Jews. She tried to get to Moses, but she couldn't. So she went to a man by the name of Zimri. Zimri was the head of the tribe of Shimon. He says, Moses is from the tribe of Levi. That's son number 3. I'm from the tribe of Shimon, son number 2. So I'm greater than Moses. And Zimri ben Salu took Cosby, the Midianite woman, in front of the whole Jewish nation, in front of Moses. And he says, is this girl permitted to me or not permitted to me? And Moses said, no. So this guy had the audacity to tell Moses, well, tell me, why are you allowed to marry your wife who was a Midianite? Zipporah was a Midianite. And anyways, so he takes her in the tent, and he has immoral relations in front of the whole Jewish camp. There was one Jew, Pinchas, who remembered the law. The law is, if a person has immoral relations with a non-Jew, you take him and you kill him. But hold on. But it's only at the time of the indecent act. If you kill them a moment after, you are a murderer. And it's only if everything I'm saying now is only a Jewish male with a non-Jewish woman. Okay? Everything I'm saying. Now, the Torah says that Pinchas took a spear and he went and he killed Zimri and Cosby. And he picked up the spear and everybody saw that they were in the middle of the act of intimacy when he killed them. And he showed the whole Jewish nation. And God said, Pinchas restored my anger. I was so angry. And I'm going to give him the gift of peace. Now, why is it that when it comes to this sin of a Jewish male with a non-Jewish woman, God is angry? When a person eats on Yom Kippur, it doesn't say God is angry, it's a terrible sin. When a person eats a cheeseburger with ham, bacon, right? It's a terrible sin, but God doesn't get angry. Very, very few times God... Why with this specific sin it says God was angry? Why? And why with this specific sin is it only somebody's allowed to kill you at the time of the sin, not a moment before, not a moment after? There's something about this sin which doesn't exist with anything else. And listen carefully. In general, when it comes to sins to do with immorality, it is much harsher and much more severe than any other sin. Okay? Why is that? Yeah?
Maybe because it could be, since the woman's not Jewish, it could just stop the generation from going.
So what's wrong with that?
Everything's wrong with that.
It's a willing action, something like that.
Why is that worse than on Yom Kippur, once a year, the holiest of holies, the holiest day, a person takes a hamburger, a cheeseburger, and he eats it, violating Yom Kippur? Why is that worse? So when it comes in general, not just non-Jewish women, but in general to sins of immorality would include a man having relations with a married Jewish woman. These are considered the worst kind of sins. Why is that? Because with every sin, if I am speaking Lashon Hara, I'm speaking evil slander, terrible, terrible sin. But who is sinning? In my mouth. If I'm eating something non-kosher, who's sinning? In my mouth. If I turn the light on Shabbat, who's sinning? My hand. If I forget to put on tefillin one day, who's sinning? My hand, right? Every sin that I have, it's a part of me that is sinning. When it comes to immorality, when a male does an immoral act, he takes his essence and he sins with his essence. And let me explain that in a practical example. It's a great job with the l'chaims. Great job. But give them out. Make sure everyone drinks.
Please take.
Everyone take a l'chaim. We have to say l'chaim and absorb the shiur today. So when it comes to... Give me a l'chaim. I'll take one. When it comes to immorality. So let's say, for example, you have a blind father. And a blind father marries a blind wife. Can the child be born, be healthy? Can he see? L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'ro. Can the child be born, can see, is able to see, yes or no? Yes, why is that? What do you mean? Both parents are blind. How can the child be able to see? Because when you have a child, you create the child from your essence. You create the child from a level which is deeper than your regular faculties. It's from your essence, right? That's how we create a child. It comes from your essence. And that is why any sin which has to do with an immoral act in general is more severe than any other act, any other sin. But specifically when it comes to a male, Jewish male having relations with a non-Jewish woman is worse, in a sense, and I'm going to say this with caution, in a sense, than having relations with a married Jewish woman. What happens when you have a relations with a married Jewish woman? That child is born is called a mamzer. Mamzer means a bastard. A child born from a married Jewish woman, right? Doesn't matter if the male is married or not married. So either married male man or not married male man has relations with a married Jewish woman, specifically married Jewish woman. If it's a single Jewish woman, it's a crime, it's terrible, but it's not a mamzer. Mamzer means a bastard. A child born is a bastard, has certain laws that he can marry only a fellow mamzer as well. Just without getting into all the details now, right? But it's worse in a sense, and I'm going to say that with caution, in a sense, when a male has relations with a non-Jewish woman. Why is that?
The
This,
child isn't Jewish.
more than that. Yes.
Intermarriage
Why is intermarriage so bad, specifically in this case?
and a shopper. There's no shopper.
More. God created boundaries in the world. This, you ever watch Tevye Fiddler on the Roof? And he says, his daughter, I think, wants to marry a non-Jewish man. He says, can a fish marry a bird? Right? They could, but where would they live? They live in the fish, or they live in the air. The point is like this. God created boundaries in the world. There's something called day, and there's something called night. It's boundaries. Day and night just cannot coexist. They cannot coexist. There's something called a man, and there's something called a woman. And a man is a man, and a woman is a woman. Those are simple facts of life. And we get confused, it's because of the darkness of this world. But a man is a man and a woman is a woman. That is a fact. That is a boundary. A man has his powers, and a woman has her powers. When it comes to me and my wife, I try to stay out of my wife's business because she's superwoman and she does things much better than me. So I kind of stay out. Like last time we had a beautiful bar mitzvah and I was a guest because I know when my wife leaves that she just does things much better. I know her talents. I have some, not as, but the man is a man, as a woman is a woman. We each have our strengths. The moment we say, a man says, I want to be a woman, or a woman says, I want to be a man, that is like negating who they are. It's negating the boundaries and the borders that God set and created in the world. So no sin that you can possibly do can transform and cross over the boundaries that God created of Jew and non-Jew. And again, I'm not talking about a non-Jew converts. That is an amazing thing. That is an incredible, beautiful thing. But a Jew is a Jew and a non-Jew is a non-Jew. God created boundaries in the world. That's that simple. Let me just finish off the thought. And you cannot cross over those boundaries. So when you violate Yom Kippur, you did a terrible sin, but you haven't crossed over those boundaries. When you have immoral relations with a Jewish woman and the child's a mamzer, you haven't crossed over the boundaries. But when a Jewish man has relations with a non-Jewish woman, specifically in that case, it's the only sin that you have completely crossed over the boundary of Jew and non-Jew. And it's only during the act of intimacy that you have done it. No other time. You've taken your essence and you've given it over to a non-Jewish woman and created a non-Jewish child. That is why it is so severe. That is why it's so harsh. That is what makes God angry. But specifically, if any details from what I'm saying is missing, it doesn't fall under this category. Yes?
Why is it only if a man does it with a woman and not if like a Jewish girl does something with because she's Jewish?
Exactly. If a non-Jewish man has immoral relations with a Jewish woman, it's not exactly a mitzvah, right? Let's just get this clear. It's not a mitzvah, but you haven't crossed over the boundary of Jew and non-Jew. It doesn't. What we're saying here doesn't exist.
Because
Doesn't.
the kid can,
Yes.
the kid is going to be Jewish.
Yes.
So it's
it does
kind of
have to
okay.
do with.
Says what?
It's kind of okay then?
I didn't say that. I didn't
It's
say
trying
that.
to force someone to convert, but it's very hard.
Correct. So what we're saying here doesn't fall under that scope. Doesn't fall under the scope of a Jewish woman with a non-Jewish man. It's not what I'm talking about here tonight.
Okay.
But Zimri, listen carefully to this. Zimri was da tachton. He thought, I see reality from my eyes. Oh, Moses married a Midianite woman. Why can't I? When you look at perspective through your eyes, then yes, you can do anything you want. But Moses comes from a perspective of Da'at Elyon. God is in control of the world. God is the boss. God is the Almighty. So if you look at perspective from your eyes, yeah, I can do anything I want. But there's two ways to look at the universe. God's perspective and my perspective. And what we need to do is give ourselves over to God. Give ourselves over to that Da'at Elyon. And when you do that, you will live a healthy, wholesome life. Yes?
What about in terms of things that cross boundaries, like the boundary between Shabbos and the 6 days?
So very good. But it's still in the boundary of Judaism. It's still a terrible crime, but it doesn't evoke God's wrath, His anger. And just to sum up the whole shiur tonight, Tonight is one of the greatest holidays in the history of all holidays. That's why I want everybody to say L'chaim. Tonight is the 12th day of Tammuz. The 12th day of Tammuz, just under 100 years ago, Stalin set, and he said to everybody, my enemy number one is Judaism. If you have a Jew who's caught observing any mitzvah, I'm going to sentence him to Siberia, I'm going to kill him. And there was one man, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, who made it his mission to preserve Judaism. The Frierdiker Rebbe said, if he's going to shut down one mikveh, I'm going to open 5. If he's going to get one Jew to not do tefillin, I'm going to bring 5 more people to do it. If he's going to shut down one yeshiva, I'm going to open 5. All counter-revolutionary, all underneath, right? Underneath under the radar. And he told 10 of his Hasidim, he said, I want you to fight till the last drop of blood is in you. If you need to die for the cause, you will do it. And that's how he continued spreading Judaism. And eventually the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was arrested, and the Judaism was being threatened. The whole Judaism was being threatened. Previous Rebbe, even under arrest, didn't cower, didn't budge. Chevy, we were just talking about you.
I told her, don't worry.
Oh, the previous Rebbe, he didn't budge, he didn't move, even under arrest. And there was a miracle that took place, an unbelievable miracle. And the previous Rebbe was released from prison tonight in 1927. And the Rebbe, when he came out of prison, he said, this is a simcha, a joyous occasion, not just for me, but for every Jew on planet Earth. Because God has now allowed us to continue our efforts to spread Judaism. It was an open miracle which defied nature. By all means, the Stalin's regime didn't need to listen to anybody. It was completely defied logic, defied nature. It didn't make any sense. The previous Rebbe was freed, and eventually he left Russia. He came to America, where he founded the Chabad movement in America, basically. And when he came to America, people told him, America not like Europe, you can't spread Judaism here. And he said the statement, America is nit anders, America is no different. And he founded the whole global Chabad movement right up here, and the Rebbe took him over in 1951. But that is because you had a Jew, Da Tachton, knowledge from below says it's too difficult, it's too hard. Stalin says no Judaism, so that's it, Judaism is dead. But then you have somebody like the previous Rebbe who said, Dat Elyon, what does God want? God has His perspective. We are not blind. God is not blind. His perspective is, I can do this. And that is the holiday we're celebrating here tonight. So I urge you all, I bless you all, that you will be able to open up your eyes. The Rebbe finished off every talk and he said, we need to get out of this double darkness. So dark that we don't even realize it's dark. We need to get out of this darkness, and we need to open up our eyes so that we can light up the world, and hopefully Mashiach will come right now.
Amen.